Oh, hello, now my mic's working. That's a good thing. Hello, how are you? Evening. Wow, 2 of you straight off the bat. Holy crap. I'm not quite sure what we're going to do this evening, to be honest. I haven't really thought about it. You know how it is? It's kind of 4 o'clock. Right, I'll just look at... What do you mean it's after 7 o'clock? Where did those 3 hours go? So I haven't... And in case you're wondering, these are my sticks. That's my sticks I'm dragging around. And probably really annoying you with, so I should put them down. We have... Ooh, a rather jaunty angle. There we go. We have an empty pillow. Or... And potentially the requirement for pricking sheet and stabbing of holes, and you talk to me while I stab holes in a piece of card, or we do triangle. Now she says just moving some stuff around because, well, that's necessary. Not that one. Is it that one? Yeah. So we can either poke holes in this, although, to be honest, remember I printed it out and we went with this one. I've got a feeling that was a mistake, because but we can use that one. That one's still usable. I just have to make sure I note the right side of it. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, we're never going to use these again, so it is a little bit pointless, but, hang on. I'm going to mark which is the front, because some of them have stuff on the back, and it gets confusing, so... don't need to write it on this one, because I didn't print it on the back of this one. So... I realised that the page alignment was all out, and then reprinted it and didn't want to waste the paper. So, not that I'm so desperate that I can't reprint a sheet of A4 paper, but, you know, it seems stupid to be chucking it in the bin for the fun of it, so I printed on the other side. So we either, or we triangle, and I'm not so sure. So the fact that you are here, brings me joy. For company is a thing that I need today. It's been a bit of a tough day. I was trying to train up, well, not train specifically, but I was trying to work with a co-worker, and we had a bit of a chat pre-meeting, and we realised there was the meeting, so we had the meeting. And they were like, oh, I've just got to go and do something. Okay. Then they came back a bit later, and it was quite a bit later. Oh, that took a bit longer than I thought. Oh, well, to let you know, they were offline for like 90 minutes. Then suddenly it's like, well, hi, I'm going to lunch at 1. Okay, well, it's half an hour. It's kind of not really worth the effort. Okay, see you after that. 2:45. And you're like... This is why we don't show you stuff, because you're not frigging there. So I didn't get anything really done. So it's been a bit frustrating. Now I'm not going to say it's entirely their fault, because of course they came back for lunch and they were like, "Hey, I'm back," and I'm like, "Great, let's go on with it." Oh wait, you've got to go now do your timesheet for last week that you didn't do. And you're like, oh, I just need to. I asked you to help with this because I thought you wanted to learn some stuff, you know. So, I was frustrated today. But as I say, it's technically not their fault entirely. So I don't know what to do, my friends. Friends, what should I do? Do I stab holes and we have conversation? Or do I do annoying triangle? Please vote. Please tell me your thoughts. And this is when I find out you're not listening anymore. Yeah. Speak to me, people. This always happens to me. I ask a question and everyone's gone. Fine. If you're not listening, I'll stab holes at you then. Not a good sign when you've got cramps already. Oh well, such is life. There'll be plenty more to go. They really need to make one of those cricket attachments for stabbing things. They've got cutting tools and pens, and they need one that will poke a hole so that it will draw it and then poke the holes. That's what we need in life, very much. Can you stop, you two? Just living with a garbage disposal unit. Exciting this, isn't it? The joys. Oops. Spot blocked it. comfortable there, dog. All that humping you should be. As if sitting on my chair was not luxury enough. I can hear you, dog. It's got like the old man mutters. He's clearly not realising he's using his outside voice. Yeah, I don't get to do too many before I need to stop and wiggle my hand, or my hand's going to cramp up real bad. And there are lots of spots to do, so let's not push it too hard, you know. You've got something to listen to. Oh, you've got something to listen to. just always takes longer than you hope. Today, I am armed and dangerous with this, which is, for those who can't tell, a water spray bottle. It is not for telling off of fluffs, it is for squirting my good self and cooling down with. It's a bit warmer again today. Not drastically so, but enough that every so often you're kind of going, you know, especially when you're concentrating, that you just sort of go, I'm a bit hot now. So, I have it as preventative. I can also spray the dogs with it, which is always a bonus. I think the most depressing part of doing this is, of course, like I mentioned earlier, is that we won't be using these strips again, most likely. There's no blatant reason to need the strip skin. And then, of course, one day we'll have to do the next 4, which will be the real 4. So, I'm going to do my arms, if that's okay. My arms are a little bit dry and sticky, and a bit of water would be nice. Instantly disappears. One thing I am having to do is very consciously not grip this too hard, because it makes my finger sore. And I think as a child I always grabbed the pen too hard, but like everything, if no one ever says to you, you're grabbing it too hard, you just continue because, well, it's working as it stands. I used to get terrible dents in my fingers, and then they'd be really sore from writing too much. So I'm pretty sure I did hold it too hard. But at some point, the pen probably slipped slightly, so I gripped it like my life depended on it forevermore out. How are we doing? I blatantly missed any. I think so. Yeah, there's one possibly there. Some about here. No, that's as expected. It's quite hard because on the back there are black dots, and when you hold it up to the light you can see the black dots, and the fact that the pinholes are not on the dots doesn't help. So you have to try and play, do there look to be any spots that should have a pinhole in that don't? And the answer was not obviously. blood needed in fingers. Nearly there, people. Nearly there. Oh, that's my teeth started. Get in there. Now, if only you could make lace as quick as pricking the holes. Although I don't know. If I could make, let's say I made a curtain in, I don't know, 4 or 5 weeks. Would it be as special? I don't think it would. Very nearly there, people. So, right, that gives me my base, and I need to colour in these dots so I have a better finish this time round. These dots fill in where the snake would have ended, so gives me something to aim for. sure I have dotted everything. Looks like it. Doesn't look like I missed any. Not blatantly, anyway. So. Right, now. A bit worried there's only 2 of these on here. What happened to the others? Because there were more. I took them out. I did take them out. So, this goes around under here like this. And pin it down. Like that. Not sure that's entirely straight. That looks better. Doesn't have to be perfect after all. Right, time to put glasses back on. So, time to restart. Grab my pouch of bobbins. For any new people, I have in here a pouch full of bobbins. I made these bobbins and I really like these bobbins, and hopefully you will too, because they're slightly unusual. So that's, I'm not sure I've got enough thread for this, but maybe I do, because it's, yeah. I'm going to have to tie the knot off screen because I need it close to my nose. I apologise for that. But as always, we thank Nauticalc for helping us work out an easy way to do these knots without losing our marbles. For loss of marbles is easy enough without adding to them. I'm just having a problem trying to trim this end. There we go. So that goes there like that. I fully relate to that. I've always had problems swallowing pills. And, you know, why is it that the more problems you have swallowing pills, the bigger the pill they seem to give you? And like we said the other day, though, Mickey gets me. It's there is the payoff. There is the payoff between, does what I'm doing give me benefit? Chances are, yes. Is the downside enough to undo the good that it does? Because if it does, if kind of zero's here and the pills add this much to it, but you get this many problems with it, well, then it's not worth it. And I know that we all struggle with. I mean, I don't know about you, and I also, I can't speak for you. You're well free to chime in if you feel willing and able. But one of the things that I've found with a lot of this is that to me, the idea of taking a pill when the world seems to be the problem. So my depression is usually triggered by somebody, something. So in my mind, if I'm feeling really miserable, if I'm feeling my usual level of, I am no value to the entire universe and the world would be better off without me, how does eating a pill change that? How does that make everybody else stop being a jerk? And the answer, of course, is it does not. And that to me is where I think I struggle, is that I get that. Now, obviously, the pills change our reaction to other people, and so they can and do help. But in the back of my mind, it feels like it always felt to me like the pills were masking the problem. It's almost like being fed happy juice. If someone fed you happy juice, so all you did was laugh and enjoy the world, you're not seeing the world as it is. And for me, while the pills did most certainly help, and like I explained to you, the problem was they made me allergic to sunshine to a level that became intolerable. But it was one of those things, is that there was the fact that for a good while the effects of the pills were worth it until they weren't. And I strongly believe that there are times when, the doctors will keep prescribing you the pills because, well, that's what they do. You've met the criteria for requiring them, and so they will keep giving you them. If you don't go back and say, I'm unhappy with the problems these are causing, I struggle to eat them, my logic says that this should not make the difference, so I'm beginning to feel this. They may say to you, well, that's a really positive sign, because one of the famous quotes that I heard once was that if you think you're crazy, you're probably not. And we discussed this in that it is really hard when they seem to be helping, but that there are downsides. And so I do fully understand for you that it is a very difficult situation to be in, because you want the problem to go away. These seem to help the problem, but there may be an alternative but similar one that will react with you differently, because like everything, we are not all the same. And so as a result of that, if they can find you one that works for you, that just gives you less side effects, well, that's exactly what you need. Now, it is not always that simple, because it really isn't. Otherwise, they get it right first time, right? But sometimes, our bodies, being the unique and wonderful things that they are, or not, as the case may be, we they have to give you something that is these commonly will do the job. However, for not everybody. Now, there may be times when they've tried them all and gone, well, you didn't get on with any of them, we do not have other choices for you. But until you've been through quite a few, because there's always quite a few, bear in mind I used to work for a company who produced the statistics of pharmaceuticals in the UK. And I can tell you, there are more variants on everything than you could ever dream. And sometimes it's a question of dose. So it may be that a marginally lighter dose will reduce it, or that, and one thing that my ex-husband will stand on a soapbox and die on, he's on some heart pills. He's an old fart, he's 60 in a few months, right? But he's on some heart pills. If company A makes them, they're great. They help him, he has no side effects, they're wonderful. Company B makes them, he has more side effects than he can shake a stick at. Yet, the exact same medication is in the box. Because pills, pharmaceuticals are heavily regulated. And technically, if I buy Joe Blogg's insert medication, so I'm on propranolol, that's for my migraines, right? So if I have Joe Blogg's propranolol, it should be exactly the same as, Farmco Inc.'s propranolol, but they're not. And that's one of the things that even I've noticed with my propranolol. And I'm on pivotazine and propranolol for migraines, right? And I've noticed that depending on whose I get, I feel different. Yeah, it's nothing to write home about, but I noticed that one company is more effective than the other. So the company they've been giving me for the last few times happens to be the less effective one. Now, it's not so ineffective that you go back to the doctor going, well, there's no point eating these, but they're not as effective, so there clearly is a difference. But you read the box, nothing. It contains the same active ingredient and all of those kind of moments. Well, so how different can they be? Well, it can be as simple as, if company A uses this in the coating and company B uses that in the coating, your body plus that plus this equals mayhem. And one of my pills they're both white from the effective company, and one of them comes in pink when they come from the defective company. And I'm not convinced that it's not the colouring that is making the difference. But how do you explain this to the pharmacy? Because, much as they are intelligent, wonderful people, please stop sending me company B, because, well, frankly, I know you will tell me it's the same shit and it's all in my mind, but it can't be, because, well, kind of got proof, right? Long gone are the days when pharmacies ground ingredients together and made the pills, because then I would probably believe it is the same shit. It's unlike food. While the pills are heavily regulated, you don't get what I would term the padding ingredients are. So one of the things that a lot of people don't know, and I'm sure you do, is that 99% of the pill that you get given, whether it's this big or this big, is padding. It's chalk, it's you know, for want of a better word, flour. It is unnecessary product to bulk it out so that you can take it. Because obviously if you think of how much, you know, 0.5 micrograms is, you know, you'd have a job to find it on your finger. So they have to make them big enough that you can pick them up, if nothing else. Because they can't exactly give you a lick and go, you must take 3 licks of the stick, you know. So they do this. And, well, what if it's something in the padding? But what if it's something in the padding? Because, you know, the actual weight of, I mean, don't get me wrong, pills are not heavy, but, you know, the actual active ingredient portion is an incredibly small portion of the pill. Now, when they taste like cat butt, it is kind of impressive that it tastes so bad when the active ingredient is so small. And you're kind of left with that kind of part of your brain that's right. I'm struggling to tie a knot for some reason. It's like I've got fat fingers all of a sudden. Oh, that's because it's got a bump in it. Let me sort that out. Chop. Okay. Not that that stops me making a knot, but it will stop the knot from being a good knot. So, same difference. But yeah, you know, if you take the average paracetamol with like 100 micrograms of active product in it, that is, you know, like 1 grain of sand, right? And yet your average paracetamol is 0.5 centimetre in diameter, right? Or it's one of those elongated pill things, right? But again, it's still, you know, kind of like 0.5 centimetre in length or so. They are of noticeable size. They don't need to be that big. Now, if you've ever had saccharin or, you know, coffee sweeteners or whatever, isn't it funny how coffee sweeteners are small? Most pills could be that size or smaller, but they never are. But when you come to try and swallow them, and I always have problems swallowing pills, I have kind of got over that now, but if you could have them all the size of a saccharin, well, you'd be get a greater chance of eating them because you could shove them in with a little bit of food and they'd disappear quite easily. But no, they make them quite big, and, you know, especially if they then don't sugarcoat them because they want to stick then. But they, you know, there's a reason they should sugarcoat them all. It's because they taste like arse. And yeah, I mean, you know, I do understand that they don't want to encourage you to eat more pills than you should. You know, if they made them actually taste nice, we'd have a problem. But, you know, limits and sensibleness, and, you know, there are plenty of pills out there that I'm sure people would not take for the fun of it. I mean, one of the problems I have with my anti-migraine pills, they'll only ever give me a month's worth at a time. Now, I have no history of abusing medication. I have no history of forgetting my medication, no history of overdoing my medication. Yet they will only ever give me 1 month's worth. And there's a bit of you that kind of goes, oh shit, I was going to do that this time. Oh, I'll do it for the last one. I was going to join as I went and I forgot. I'll do it next time. But there is that problem that you find yourself going, actually I could undo it. I'm not really on the mood. But you find yourself going, you know, if people made pills a bit more swallow, those who are having to take them, not the, oh, I've got a couple of antibiotics I need to take for a week, right? I'm not talking of those people. I'm talking those on basically for life medication, which my anti-migraine ones are. Trevor's heart ones are. Can we not make them a tad more kind of friendly in the, you know, you don't want to choke on them every night or morning or whenever you take them because they're so big, right? You just don't need to be choking on it. You don't want death, you know, asphyxiated by you know, medication. It's not a thing, right? But they seem to be quite happy to try and kill us all with them, so, you know. No, I think I've just cocked that up. Yep. Let's try that again. There we go. Now this one's going to be more interesting because I need 3 pairs here. And I need to undo you because I've already got one. Yeah. Actually, it's going to be more pairs than 3, isn't it? Jesus, this is going to be complicated. This is going to be 6 pairs. I'm dreaming, so... What I actually need to do... Bing! Let's put these down. And we will put in some dots. So you need a dot there, and you need a dot there. Hello, draw dot. Where's my Sharpie pen? No, suddenly not drawing. Draw a dot. Draw a dot. You're a dot. You then have a dot there and a dot there. You get a dot there, and you need a dot there and there and there and yeah. And really I should have some dots over here, so I'm trying to, like the start of my thing, so I need a dot there. By the looks of it, ish. It's possibly a little low down, probably about there actually. And one would have been there, so possibly one there. Anyway, something like that. Where's my pattern from the first one? So actually, I need a line to there, a line to there, and a line to there. There we go. I think that's right. It's a bit late if it's not, but let's have a look. So that's the middle one. So there should be, yeah, one kind of there and one there, and then dot, 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 dot. There you go. That's what I need. Yeah, that's alright. I know what I'm doing. Right. Just kind of we'll make it a bit better. So you go in here like this, and we do move you out that way. This way I don't have to try and magic out of my butt 3 pairs of, or 6 pairs of things. So. Now I am doing it higher up than the other ones. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. You're going to make the first one, and we need you and the next couple of pairs. twisting away. The only problem with lace threads is that there isn't any weight behind them, so it's very difficult to guide them sometimes, because they've got a bit of a curl to it and then it won't go anywhere near where you want. That's more than one. This one's bound to look a little bit skank, but that's okay. Not too worried about what the top looks like. Could have waited a layer, I guess. Could have started at this one down here, but it's fine. It's fine. Getting terrible cramp in my hand. Right. not where you need to be. You need to be there. There we go. Let's finish off your side. Time is it called past now? Ouch. Poked myself with a pen. Shocker. Do that a lot. this is the problem when it curls up on itself, and for no obvious reason other than it just does, which then means I can't poke the other thing through the hole. But where there's a will, there's a way. Of course, part of the problem is this could have been done much further up, so that this point was this point. However, because we were spreading them out and then printing them out down a sheet of paper, didn't work out that way. So. Because as you can tell by these, this was originally to follow on, and some of the, you know, kind of down to about here was the overlap. Nearly halfway across, you know, because that's the halfway mark. So we've got, well, 5 more pairs of pins, because obviously the middle pin is 2 and spans both sides. So 5 pairs of bobbins away from the centre, which isn't bad going, let's truly be honest. And we'll have added our bobbins back. two doing? Amy, you're making a lot of noise this evening, darling. You've been funny all day. Yes, yes you have. I know you're sulking because your bruvs hasn't played with you and that you and I have not had tea yet. No, we have not eaten today, any of us. So don't be acting like it's woe is you. None of us have had food. You haven't seen me eating anything either. No. Excuse you. Excuse you. Excuse you and your big fat nose. No, don't get on the table. You can't see this, but I am now sat upon by a little brown dog. Hello. Do I need to spray you with the bottle? How are you doing? You're not too hot today. I mean, you're not exactly cold, but you're not hot. Little one. Hey, little one. I do love you very much. Yes, I do. Yes. Waggy wag, waggy waggy wag, waggy waggy wag. Yes, I know, big waggies. I apologise for the banging. This is a tail, obviously. Come on, off you get. Oh. I know how that goes. Hello, miss. No, this doesn't mean round two. It does not. Oh, little one. What silly. Yes. Oh, ow. Oh, don't tread on that. That's not for treading on. Something that is very hard to explain to people when you're a bigger fronted lady is that dogs can stand on part of you that you never knew was magical. I am okay, thank you very much, Effin Archer. How are you? Plain little mess. You're not helping. No, you're not helping. You're not. So not. Absolutely not. This is more the dog airbag. And apparently I hit something because there is dog completely in the way. I mean, my left hand, this is as far as I can reach now because there's a dog in the way. This one's all right because she's doing all right, but you're in the way, honey. I know one way to get rid of it. Oh, off you go. Sprayed tummy with water. She'll now go away and kind of go, what the hell? So, as she comes back, she poor dog. Right. This is lying down now. Right. So yes, how are you? How are you? It's good to have someone to talk to. has. It has indeed. Very long time. I think technically you even had a name change since I last spoke to you, but I think I know who you are. Yes, I believe Archer is more of the normal name. But yes, indeed, it's been a long time. I don't tend to play Sota these days. Kind of got fucked off with it, to be honest. And it was no disrespect to Chris, to be honest. I did feel that Star and Lord British kind of shafted him over on that. Yeah, and I think the worst part is even once Chris bought, basically had to buy them out, which cannot have been cheap, even though that's what they wanted. The fact that he had to buy and yeah, that's right, for some reason this one's being a bit of a pain. The thread is coming out of all the wrong places in all the wrong ways. Quite what's going on here. I'm assuming somehow you are the thread that was at the bottom, but I don't think you were. You seem to have... Where's a pin? So yeah, you have to excuse me when I poke at this to try and find out where this thread goes and comes from. Something going on. Now, I'm convinced, the more I stare at this, that the colour's rubbing off on this one as well. It's like there's multiple knots. Well, that was the impression I got with Lord British and Star in general, was that, they'd kind of got bored of Sota and so had moved on to wanting to do other things, but at the same time still wanted their faces on it because it might make them a few quid in the meantime. So they sold it. Obviously this is personal opinion. I have no factual basis for this. But, Chris was left with a game that he truly believed in, so he bought out, as Catfish Games, the rights to kind of work on it. But at the same time, you know, he was left with the fact that, you know, because one of the things you and I both know is that according to their front page of their website, when they were displaying such figures, that had nearly, well, that at the time they withdrew the visibility of the figures, they had the best part of $20 million in funding, and while they had kind of gone live, it kind of wasn't worth the meat it was written on. That there was still very much work in progress to be done. And, you know, they had to cut back on people, and they ditched the office because they were running out of money. Now, I will tell you that making a game is not a cheap hobby. But in part, dear America, that's because you pay ridiculous salaries to some of them. You know, when the Unity War cracked out last year, and for those who missed out on what the Unity War was, Unity, who make a game engine, funnily enough, the game engine that Sota's written in and one that I use, very much announced that they were going to take fees. Now, to an extent, you could argue they already took a level of fee, but it wasn't going to be as, it wasn't at the time and isn't now as bad as what they'd proposed. Now, what they'd proposed really actually was, it could have been a lot worse, but the community reacted very, very badly to it, in that initially all of us who have the free Unity can earn up to $100,000 without having to pay for Unity. Once you earned over 100,000, yeah, the colour's coming off. That's definitely grey. Clearly, I need to put more. I need to put more varnish on those because it seems odd that it's coming off. Anyway, and they wanted to change it. Now, to be fair, yeah, you can see from that that's dirty. You can see the colour on it. They then announced that once you had over, I think it was 500,000, so $500,000, you needed to have a pro license. Now, the pro license is over £1,000, so I assume $1,500 or so a year. But that you didn't need to pay additional fees until you had either one, it is a per seat license, so for each fiddler you have, because there are ways around it, for each fiddler, you know, if you've got artists, you do not need to give them Unity. You can have them, you know, use Blender or whatever, and so they don't need a copy of Unity. And there are a couple of other ways that have kind of come to light that you might be able to bend it slightly and all. But it is per seat license, so $1,500, but $1,500 per employee, and I know it's per year, but if you think of that, that's what, $5 a day or something, right? It's not a ridiculous amount. But once you had 1 million installs of your product, or you made £1 million, dollars, sorry, I think in pounds, they're units, go with units, right? But $1 million, you would be required for every install stroke dollar over, you would pay something like, you know, 0.5 cents per install per dollar, right? So, and it was a rolling number, so it had to be in the last 12 months. So if initially you had 1 million people install it but didn't make any money, you didn't pay because you hadn't met the $1 million threshold. You had to have made both. This was the proposal. You had to have made both. Now, lots of people didn't read it properly and the threads on the Unity forum were enough to make a grown man cry. But the truth of the matter is it was quite clear that you had to achieve 1 million installs and $1 million in 12 months. Now, I don't know about you, but if you've managed to make 1 million and Unity are saying for each additional dollar effectively over that, yeah, the loose worded, but that was their intention. Before they backpedaled, that was their clarification. And there may have been a marginal tweak in there, but that was the original, what they claimed they had meant thing. But if you're making 1 million, and let's say you charge $20 for a copy of your game, are you really that pissy about 0.5 cents of your... You can't budget that? Anyway, now I do appreciate that there were games that this was going to hit hard. So, but again, you still had to make 1 million. So for all of us not making money at all, matters not, right? For people, but there were lots of people who were going, well, I make a free-to-play game, I make lots of money through microtransactions. And yes, they would be hit. Now, part of the problem with a lot of the microtransaction stuff is that, you can buy this for, $3 or whatever, right? But you still need to make $1 million out of it. And whether you're, selling some fancy looking sword, for your character for $3 or an extra character, slot or whatever it is, you still charged $3. Now, yes, you do have to pay people out of that. And this is why they were hit the hardest. Because obviously, unlike the likes of Diablo, who are charging $100 per expansion. Exactly. There is... Everyone was acting like, the moment I make $5 out of it, you're going to steal it off me and I'll go bankrupt. Now, if you're struggling to have the turnover to pay what arguably would be quite small fees, because bear in mind, Unreal, if I make a game and I make $1,000 out of it, Unreal want 5% of that. If all I do is make $1,000 out of it, Unreal want, legally, they are rightly going to claim I need to pay them, 50 quid. So, it is not Unity waiting till you hit 1 million, and it is only in effect to the stuff over 1 million. So if you make 1 million, 1 million installs and 1 million quid the first month, right? Yes, that rolls on, but 12 months later, you had, I actually think there was something almost like per month. You had to have breached 100,000 to then pay up the next month, or it didn't count. So it really wasn't quite as bad as a lot of them has made out. And a number of the people who... Excuse me, I need to stop this thing in my ear because it's now doing the I'm going to be hyper mega loud crap. And it's deafening me and I'm going to shout at you if I do that. But it's not that they weren't going to make money. So people like Sota, who had had all that money, but because they'd had it in the past and were not getting it kind of monthly, it was not going to be so much of a problem because, well, it's just not. So can't tell what I've done now. No, I didn't do anything. So with that in mind, they did have some lower costs, but obviously they did have a number of developers. But Star and Nord British kind of drained the funds a lot. But if I tell you that nearly every single one of the American developers that appeared in that Unity thread about things. Well, I think they had, but what I also think is that an awful lot of the mobile games companies hadn't thought it very well. They just saw someone wanting in on their market and their money. And, you know, I mean, think how we all think. You know, when you earn money, you know, hi, effing Archer, I'm going to employ you to... It was true, but I mean... you know, if I employ you and I say, right, I'm going to give you £5,000 to do the following thing, right, and you go, yeah, I'll do that, but of course you don't get £5,000 because the government gets this and these people get that, and you've got to pay for this and you've got to pay for that. You walk away with like 250 quid. You're feeling a little bit hard done by. And if then someone comes along and goes, right, we're instituting a workers' union legislation, you must pay £10 a month towards that, it's another £10. So I'm not going to say that it's not wrong to be upset, because, you know, like everything, it's your money, you're the one doing the work for it. I mean, I'm not saying Unity aren't doing work, but if you didn't make the money, they wouldn't be getting any. So, you know, it's a bit like, I know, this pair of scissors. I cut shit with it and don't make money. But if I suddenly cut things and made £1 million, wouldn't it feel a bit wrong if someone turned around and said, now you owe us more money? Well, why? It's the same pair of scissors. You made them already. I've paid you for the scissors. Why do you need more? And I do get that. I strongly do. And so, you know, I'm not saying that they were somewhat overreactive. But an awful lot of people got on their high horse and, you know, stomped around a lot. But very few game engines have the... Now, Unity is not perfect, please do not get me wrong, but do not have the business acumen and backing and the funds to do work on it that Unity do. Unity have a vast number of people they pay good money for and waste good money for doing things. You know, they buy companies that frankly no one was interested in and then have to sack their CEO for basically getting all of it, you know, buying all of his buds out of, you know, so they didn't go bankrupt. You know, that's a bit of a thing, or at least that's how it came over. But we do, you know, Unity as a whole is quite a solid product, and you can do quite a lot with it. Quite a lot of games are made on it, and there was a whole lot of we're gonna boycott it. That's the word I'm after. Boycott it because it's crap, you know. Well, not necessarily. But the whole Star and All British thing, you know, they did seem to drain it and leave Chris with almost an empty husk of the former 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The former workings, and he has had to move on, kind of making up for a lot of those decisions. But I do notice, of course, that come the 4th of July, Lord British will be there lording over his birthday. It's not the 4th of July, but it's around now, so I can't remember what day of the year it is, and to be honest, I don't really care. But all I remember is it was close to mine, so, and it was around the 4th of July. But it does mean that it is July the 4th. I thought it was, but I wasn't sure. Because to be honest, I don't really care. But, you know, they did milk. But, as I was saying, these Unity guys in the forum, because I kind of went, well, surely if you're making $1 million a year out of a game, you're getting a decent profit out of that, right? You know, surely that's you know, you've got enough money to pay, you know, 10 grand a year to Unity. And they went, well, you can't even fund a 5-man band from that. And it's kind of like, well, how much money do you make? Bear in mind, obviously, I know how much I make, and I've been working for the best part of, you know, 38 years in a commercial environment, and longer in a a lesser environment because I did do some work before I left school. And I don't have a, I have a two-figure income, right? And it's not even a healthy two-figure income. So for them to be, oh, we can't afford it, I'm a one-man band, if I make $1 million, I can't afford it. Wait, how much fucking money, how much are you earning? They were all claiming that they seem to earn about 200 grand a year. I'm sorry. That's a lot of money. If your business can't afford 10 grand, you need to look at what you're charging. Because, to be honest, if you're making $1 million in the first place, it's like 5 cents on every product almost, and you've now made up the difference for the cost, right? Now, obviously, Unity will want a little bit more than that, but again, it's 0.5 cents, so you're still making a profit. There's a balance point, and it's not like they were demanding, 20%, like Unreal. So, can we dial it back a little bit here? So I did feel sorry for Chris because obviously they were bled dry. The Unity guys seem to earn a fortune, and because they're based in Texas, it does seem that one of the things that I didn't know at the time, Texas does not pay tax on their income. I found this out since. So all these people who, and that's part of the reason Texas is a big area of IT, is because they can earn a stupid amount of money and they do not pay taxes on that. Now, there are federal taxes, but there are not state taxes. So, if you earn 50 grand, you will lose a minor part of that towards a few federal taxes. Unlike the UK, where basically if you earn 50 grand, over a third of your salary is not coming to your pocket, right? I think it might even be more than that, because it's about 51, it goes to 40%. Exactly. So they have to pay taxes on things they buy, but if you think of here, we in varying forms of taxation, and it is, in no other word, a taxation. We lose a third of our salary. We pay stamp duty, do not forget that. But we have... Why is that bit suddenly bald? That was all fluffy and now it's got a bald bit and I've only just noticed. How's that suddenly bald? I wonder if it's just dirty. It's got stuff on it. Oh, that might be it. Maybe the dog spilled something drooled on it or something. But we're in a position where we pay a third on what we own. No, when you buy your house, you pay a significant chunk of the value of your house to the government for the fact that you bought it. So if you have a £200,000 house and you move up to a £250,000 house, you don't pay the difference. You pay the taxes, and you don't get them back when you sell the £200,000 house, by the way. You pay taxes on a £250,000 house. That's right, it's going dirty because I'm washing it, right? No, but you do pay your council tax based on the value of your house. We still have taxes, right? And then, of course, we pay 20% on any of the shit that we buy. So the money you earn in the first place, the money we earn, we pay taxes on. The money you save, if you earn more than £1,000, didn't know this, more than £1,000 in interest over the course of the year, you now pay tax on that, because how fucking dare you. And then if you spend it, you pay 20% on that. And of course, if you buy a house with it, well, you pay a percentage of the house on it. And then of course you've got your council tax, and then of course, let's not even mention petrol, right? So if they earn 200 grand and do not pay the initial third, for example, they're still probably better off than we are. Now, admittedly, their tax system does really suck, because at least ours is a bit more upfront. Ours is really easy to work out. If you have one source of income, as most people do, one source of income, so you earn X. If you earn less than £12,550, so sorry, £12,500, you do not pay tax on it. If you earn between 12.5 and 52,250, I think it is. I'm nowhere near that, so I wouldn't know, but it's somewhere up there. If you have that kind of money, you pay 25, I think it is, percent tax. No, I think it's 20 on the amount between 12 and however much you earn. Once you breach the 52, you still pay the 20% on that, but you then pay, say, I think it's 40% on everything over 52, and once you get to the 100 somethings, well then yeah, it's just stupid, and you pay 60, right? So yes, $12.50 for before you start paying tax. 19 to 20 is minimum wage. So it's, it is difficult that, we have this sliding scale, but I think your brain's probably stuck in the 90s. But it's $12.50 because that's why your tax code is $12.50. Or likely to be $12.50. Your tax code is $12.50 because that's the amount you can have before you start paying tax. In case people didn't know, that's how UK tax codes work. When you get a job, they give you a tax code, and that's how much you're allowed to earn before paying tax on it. And yeah, just add a zero on the end of that, and that's how much you're allowed, right? I worked in payroll far too long, right? The letters mean different things, but realistically, it's the number that matters, right? One of the letters does mean negative, so you can have a negative tax code, by the way. If you owe them too much money, you can technically have a negative tax code. But it is one of those things, is that we pay our taxes as we earn it. So we never get to spend it as a whole. Now, there can be ways you get to spend it and then owe the money, but as a whole, you get you get paid, I know, 25 grand a year. Half of that gets taxed, half of that does not. You have companies sucking out national insurance money for pensions, because although the company must pay your pension, they strongly encourage you to do so too, so that they don't feel quite so bad. And by the time you've done that and a whole load of other things, and that's the thing. Now, there are ways and reasons to end up having to do tax returns every year. And for those people who have multiple incomes, hello to you. Now, if you have multiple jobs, and if they are sporadic jobs, so you're a handyman, you are a crafter and have runs or sell a great painting or any of that kind of crap, you'll have to do a tax return. If you have two jobs that pay the same every month, you won't have to do a tax return, because they'll know how much you're going to earn for the course of the year, and that will be taken into account in your pay. Because obviously company number one get told you can have 1,250, you get the tax code 1250. Company number two get told you don't have a tax code because it's already been taken, so you have to pay tax on everything on your second income. And it works out the same whether it's the better paying job or not. So don't think you're winning by doing that. It's not like, you know, it is purely total. One of them gets the code, one of them doesn't, right? And obviously, should you have more than one job for some reason, well, it repeats on. It is only if you have a unreliable, i.e., you know, oh, I do a babysitting job, but not, you know, they're all on holiday, so I don't get paid this time of year. That's the kind of time when you end up with tax codes and needing to do tax returns, because your job is not producing a regular, identical. Now, even if you do get bonuses, even if you get overtime, because that goes in every month, they can evaluate as they go along. It's when you're a handyman and effectively you do not go through the inland revenue, because maybe if I was a one-man band and I was, you know, I do not have to go through the inland revenue because I'm a one-man band to do that. But at the end of the year, I have to basically write down all my accounting information that shows this is what I earned, this is what, you know, this is the profit, this is how much I paid myself, this is how much I paid in taxes, this is my, you know, how much I've been paying towards the pension, and they complicate amount of money and basically go, you owe us money. But in America, of course, it's the, well, you earned money, you spent money, you've got to write down what you spent it on, because some things are taxable and some things aren't, just like in the UK. Some things are not taxable, books are not taxed as a whole. And except for is it paper books are not taxed and electronic ones are, or the other way around, can't remember. But one of them are, one of them isn't. But, you know, in America, it's kind of like, well, you know, I paid all these vet fees and I've got, you know, dependents, and yeah, that's what I thought. It is the physical book that is free. But, you know, if you've got children, well, you've got dependents, so they give you money off for that. And if you've got this, and, you know, it kind of boils down to flipping a coin. But I do feel a little sorry for the Americans, because they give you a really long kind of questionnaire that you fill in and you put numbers in. And, you know, carry the one, add the thing, add your birthday here and the colour of your underwear there, and you get to a number, you send them the money and they write back, that's not right, we want to put you in prison. That does seem a little bit kind of unnecessary, would be the word I'd have for that. It seems overly complicated. But on the flip side, if you consider that nearly every UK company has a payroll department, well, it is. Because if they already know how much you can own, and owe them, why don't they write back to you with, you know, dear Mr. Archer, as of, you know, because obviously tax years are April, but, you know, at the end of March, dear Mr. Archer, we've reviewed your salary, we've reviewed how much money we've had from you and how much we think you've earned. We believe you owe us 250 quid. Oh, okay, maybe you write them a cheque for 250 quid. Now, in the UK, the taxman's a bit of a shit that way. So let's say you got a bonus and you owe the taxman some money because you maybe bumped into a new tax code at the end of the year because of the bonus, right? So let's say you owe the taxman 250 quid. You next to never get a letter from the taxman that says, please write us a cheque for 250 quid. What you do get, and I would show you mine, but I'm not going to, is a letter, because my savings inadvertently cracked the £1,000 thing due to the percentage of savings that went through at the beginning of last year, because interest rates were quite high. I managed to crack the 1,000. Cheers for that, because of course I've had some savings on and off over the years, but I never knew that you paid tax on savings, because, well, I've already paid tax on it to put it in there. What do you mean I've got to pay tax on it again? Anyway, and it's not like interest rates are great, you know. But I inadvertently fell over the £1,000 limit and I owed him money. But what Mr. Taxman didn't do is write, dear Miss Kimber, please send us, I don't know, I think it was about, try not to laugh, I think I owed him 100 quid, right? No, I didn't actually get that much interest, but, you know, let's say it was 100 quid. No, he worked out how much I would need to earn to pay that much in taxes and then deducted it from my tax code. So it's not like my tax code went down 100, because, well, that's not how it works. Because let's say you're paying 20 quid, well, you pay 20%, well, your tax code goes down 5 times the amount that you owe. So if you owed them 200 quid, your tax code is going to drop by £1,000. So, but what the way it was worded was kind of like, dear Miss Kimber, you owe, say, £1,000. And I'm like, what the fuck for? Love and Kisses, the tax man, you know, a couple of other numbers that weren't really explained, and you turned it over and read the, quote, explanation on the back, and all it kind of went was, these are the numbers we've calculated from fucking what? Anyway, I ended up finding them, and it was like, spoke to a lovely bloke. He was a nice bloke. I've always had good dealings with the taxmen. I can't say I like them, but, you know, every time I've ever spoken to the taxman, I've always come away understanding exactly where I stood, or where they stood, because maybe they were wrong, because that's been a thing. And it's always been sorted at the end of the phone call. Even when I phoned up for my ex-husband, because every year they'd say he owed £1,000, and the year later they'd give him it back. The next year he owed £1,000. The year later he'd give it back. And unlike a sensible person who, knowing that the taxman's just given him £1,000, knows that next year he's going to want it back, would put it in a savings account and leave it alone. No, he'd spend it, and then of course not have the money to give them the next year, so couldn't just pay it off. So of course £1,000 times 20, think about it, means you're in a negative tax code by quite a bit. And yeah, exactly. And so it's not, you know, normal kind of interest rates. It is significant shit. And, you know, and so it goes up on like a daily basis, you know, almost like the counters are spinning like this, and you're kind of going, I only owed you 50 quid, and suddenly now it's £600. And I'm sure I'll get another letter soon, because although my tax code changed, I don't think my employer did it. So I'll be in the shit. And that'll happen at some point. And I'll phone them up and say, look, I'm just going to just look, give me a bank number and a code, and I'll give you the money and quit, right? But as far as I knew, they'd written to my employer, because they said they had, and my tax code had changed. Well, they notify your employer if tax code changes, so... And of course, since I've spoken to you, technically I've changed employer, but I didn't, if that makes some sense. I got 2P'd into a new lot. But you do sit there with this whole kind of, you know, our tax compared to Americans is really straightforward. You write on a piece of paper, I earned this much from these people, this much from that, this much from them. This adds up to this much income. I've paid you this much tax. The difference is this. I likely owe you that. And they will write back, thank you very much. When you know, here is your new shitty tax code. Enjoy, right? And ta-da, it's over. Unlike the Americans who, you know, have to keep track of everything they do all year, we get P60s, which say, dear Mr. Archer, you earned £23 this year. You did not need to pay tax on it. Love and Kisses your employer. And when the taxman comes to you, if you ever need, and because there are people who have felt that they've been randomly required to do a tax thing, you write down the numbers on your P60, send it on the form and send it back, and they go, thank you, Mr. Archer, no, you don't need to pay taxes on that. Bye, you are sorted. And you will probably never hear from them again. And it is that kind of thing, is that happens in this country. 90% of us do not need to fill in tax returns, because we have one income, and that's it. Nice. We do know how much you love, how lovely your parents are, Mika Ketsme. And I do feel for you. Breaking free of your parents is it's very difficult. So yeah, I do have a lot of sympathy for you on that one. Because it is really, really wrong that, you know, in your country that can happen. Because in our country it doesn't. It would be very difficult for someone here to have someone else's taxes. In short, because what happens is, as we've said, is they change our tax codes. So if you earned 500 quid a month and they owed you money, you know, instead of the government taking 20% of that, or it's 33% of that, they actually 500 quid a month, no, it wouldn't be, but you know, instead of them taking the third of it, they would take less than the third, because now they owe you money, right? If you owe them money, well, you pay more than 33% because, well, you owe them money. Almost no one can get in that. So unless you are having your wages paid to your parents, which kind of, why would you as a whole? I mean, there are people who do, and I do know of reasons people do, right? But it's the same as, you know, as a wife, you could have your husband paid into your husband's account. You'd be a bit daft, but you can do that. Most of us did you have a joint account, and that your wages go in your account and you both pay into the joint account. That way you get most of your shit, they can't just run roughshod over all of your stuff. And this is protection for you and for them, to be honest, in the long run. So I don't know, it is one of the kind of weird things that you find yourself going, we have a much simpler life here in the UK, because much like our health insurance stuff, you know, our health stuff, we don't pay health insurance, we don't pay to have a baby, we don't pay if you break your ankle. You can if you choose to go private, but you don't have to go private. And there are a lot of things that private healthcare will happily take your money for, but you will be in a standard ward. When I had bowel cancer a couple of years ago, I had the choice of going private or NHS. And to be honest, it didn't dawn on me for a little while that I could have gone private. When I asked about it, the healthcare company went, yeah, you could go private. And, you know, we'd pay for it. It's not a problem. You know, clearly, you know, we've already ascertained that there's something wrong with it. But you'll be in the same place with the same treatment, but you would have to start again because you now need to go through on a private kind of thing. Some things you can just convert, right? So when I bust my knee, you just phone up and go, I bust my knee, and they go, yeah. And you go, I'm going to go to this place and ask them their opinion, and they go, yeah, we'll pay for that. And then, you know, yeah, I need an operation. Yeah, they'll pay for that. Thing like cancer, because private healthcare doesn't really cover cancer in this country, it's more complicated. Even if it's still the same people, the same ward, the same shitty food, and all the rest of it. So, you know, I ended up on the NHS having my cancer sorted. Do I regret it? No. The fact that I look like a star jumped onto a chainsaw isn't the best part of my life. And the weather was ridiculously hot and we were sweating like nothing else and miserable and grouchy. But I would have been in the same bed. But I did, because I opted for NHS, get £100 a night for staying in hospital. I was only in a few nights, so it's not like I made a lot of money. But I still made money by being in hospital, because I pay towards my private healthcare, but it's not a lot a month, right? That reminds me, did I actually send that mail back to my new lot? Oh, shit. You know, when I got, I think it was 400 quid for being in there, because I think I was in 4 days. Was it 5? I think it was 5, actually. Hang on. Friday? So Saturday night, Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night, Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night. So I was in 6 nights, but I think I was in 5 days, right? So, because I went home, I think it was Wednesday or the Thursday. Can't remember. But they told me I'd be in for 2 weeks. And I was like, I doubt it. I'll be wanting out on the Monday. And they laughed at me, and I'm looking at them with that really, honey, you've not met me. I could have gone home on the Monday. If I didn't have dogs, I would have gone home on the Monday. The only reason I didn't go home on the Monday was because I was nervous because I had a shit ton of staples and very overexcitable dogs. And I was a little bit concerned that, not intentionally, that they would rip what staples out and it would get very messy and ugly back quickly. And judging, because obviously before I had my operation, I'd had my perforated bowel because they screwed up my biopsy. And as it took 9.5 hours for the ambulance to come, I didn't want that to be my guts are now spewing on the floor, the dogs are eating them, and the ambulance isn't going to come for 10 hours because I'm not going to live through that. So I was a little bit hesitant, and so they respected my hesitancy, and they didn't come see me the next day. So I must have gone home on the Wednesday because they came on the Wednesday and said I could go home. So, it really was a very short term, and they were flabbergasted because when it was all over and I came in for a checkup and everything, and he goes, "You didn't lie, did you?" And I went, "No." Mainly because I can't. And it was like, you said you wanted to go home on the Monday, but you were ready to go home on the Monday. And I went, yeah, I know. And he's like, how come? And I went, it just works out that way. When I had my teeth fixed, the dentist there couldn't believe how quickly I recovered from all of it. I've always been a fairly quick healer. I'm a grouchy bugger, but I'm a fairly quick healer. But I'm also a bit of a hit in hospitals because although I'm antisocial, I become the ward comic. I make everybody laugh. I bring everybody together because it is a bit kind of battle of the trenches. When I perforated my bowel, I couldn't walk, right? I had my colonoscopy, I think it was Tuesday. So overnight, I was waiting for the ambulance. So they came first thing Wednesday morning. Went in Wednesday. They didn't really do shit until they found me a bed at about 11 o'clock Wednesday night. Hadn't done shit to me by that point. Other than take a CT. And I still couldn't walk because, well, you have no idea how painful that shit is. When you can feel every drop of urine, every tiny flecks of everything. So if you have a sip of water, you feel that all the way. It is highly, highly horrendous. And initially they went, oh, you can't have a perforated bowel, you'll be in agony. And I'm looking at them with them, what do you think I'm in? And it's almost like, oh, well, you wouldn't be able to walk. No, I had a perforated bowel. And so I was still wearing Tuesday's clothes. And when I left, I think it was Sunday morning, I was still wearing the same clothes I'd worn first thing Tuesday morning. I hadn't had a chance for a shower. I had nothing to shower with. Nothing. They were kind of mad that I didn't have my pills on me. Well, I didn't intentionally come to hospital. I was rushed in by ambulance eventually. But because it took 9.5 hours waiting for the ambulance, if something had gone wrong at home, I clearly had a little bit of kind of concern that would not be fast enough should something go wrong. So they kept me for a couple of days till I was a little bit more mobile and flexible. Because I will point out, when you've got 15 inches of staples down your middle, moving is hard. Because you can't bend, you can't twist. You're not allowed to lift anything. I wasn't allowed to work. What do I do for working? Typing. What was I doing all the day? Typing. I could have worked. To the point my manager didn't even notice I was off, even though I didn't work. I really didn't. But apparently he didn't notice. Thanks, boss. Thanks for making me feel really important. But yeah, I got paid a, sorry you were in hospital fee of £100 a day. And there's a bit of you going, I'm sorry, pardon? Technically, I made a profit. I mean, I look a bit stupid now, but then I live alone and I'm single, so it doesn't really matter. And, very shortly I'm going to be old. So, it is one of those moments where you find yourself going, British healthcare is exceptionally different from American. I mean, let's face it. You have bowel cancer. I was potentially going to end up with colostomy bags. That's the word for it. Stupid, old, fat, many of them. But, over here, I had bowel cancer. I pay bugger all a month. I think it used to work out something like 15 quid a month or somewhere around there for medical. To be honest, I don't even remember how much it was because it came out as a lump sum amongst all the other things that they deducted for my benefits. So it was one lump sum. But I think they've said for this time around it's something like £5.71 a month or something with my new employer, right? So for £5.70, even though I've been in my old company, 20 years, even at £5, I must have made nearly £1,000. Well, that kind of covers quite a few years, really. And certainly, over the course of a couple of months, I suddenly gained £1,000 for something that was happening anyway, Whereas, of course, in America, I'd have been bankrupt because, that ambulance alone would have cost 20. The anaesthetist would have cost plenty. The pen that they drew on you, you'd have been charged per staple. We live a very different life over here, but people think so much of our stuff is free. Well, it's not free. We just pay for it differently. And it is a shared cost. So, to Effin Archer, thank you for helping for paying towards my fixing of my bowel cancer. Because, you and the rest of the country all paid for that. I mean, obviously so did I, but we all paid, 20p each or whatever the cost was. And so we don't really notice over the course of the year. But, say 20p of that was for me. Thank you very much. Probably not even that much. It's probably a penny. It really is. And so, but this is how the healthcare works here: is that you unanimously pay into a pot, and you pay a percentage of your salary. So the national insurance is kind of what covers this, and national insurance is quite a small percentage of your salary, but everybody pays in. But everybody gets to pull out when they need it. Now, if you're lucky and you live a perfectly healthy life, yeah, you do feel a bit hard done by. It's a bit like paying your car insurance. You pay your car insurance every year, and you never get any money back, and so it does feel like you're throwing it out the window. But when you look at how much Americans get charged for some of the most trivial stuff, and the fact that we then don't pay for it. Now, we have NHS dentists and NHS glasses. God help us for the NHS glasses. But we pay for those on top of... They're not free. None of it is actually free. Dentists are not free. Your £40 visit to have them stare in your gob is free. But you pay a rate for the fixings. Now, it may not be the full rate, but you still pay for the fixings. I mean, when I had my NHS dentist, when I lost my tooth because it fell out, he charged me 500 quid for a brace, basically with the tooth already stuck in it, so that I could put it in my face and pretend I had a tooth. So it was a brace with like a tooth on the end, right? Because it was a front tooth. I then paid, because it didn't fit because he fucked up the fitting, I then paid a private dentist. I think it was nearly £4,000. However, I had implants, so none of this brace shit. I can now eat toffees again. When I go, when I have an operation, I do not have loose teeth. They're not coming out. I tell them I've got them, but I don't, because obviously it would affect any head MRIs or whatever, X-rays and things that they do. But the reality, because it's got some metal work behind it. But they had to regrow my skull, by the way. That was so much fun. Because my dentist had missed that. Well done, bloke. So, to be fair, I paid, and I've got 2 implants, because there was the tooth that was originally missing, which was why I had a bridge, and it was the one end of the bridge had fallen out and took the whole thing with it. So they replaced the tooth that fell out and the missing one. So I had 2 implants, and they had to regrow my skull for £4,000. Now, that is private, and I paid that out of my good pocket. And someone at work went, "Why didn't you pay work for dental?" Next week, I am 53 years old. Other than the bridge, from which I got due to losing my tooth in my car accident, these implants are the only dental work, other than removal of wisdom teeth, I have ever had done in my entire life. Despite my ability to eat sugar, which is unparalleled to almost no other human being on this planet, for I will sit with a garden syrup can and just eat it with a spoon, I have no cavities. Still, at the age of nearly 53. Bite me. I am not paying £5-6 a month towards dental on the real, for the 2 times in my life I've needed dental. And it still would have cost me money. It would have still cost me money. They would have just paid some of it, because it wasn't, it's a bit more like car insurance, in that you have to pay, you will get some of it back maybe. If it's 50-50, you get none of it back, but your price goes up, kind of thing, right? So it depends on what they thought and why and how and all that. And so it's no guarantee that I'd have got... The only thing it would give me would have been, I don't know, free dental. But then I've got an NHS dentist for that. I can go and for him to go, "You've still not got cavities, see you next year." I can do that quite happily without paying money a month for the same privilege. So I choose not to do that. And of course, well, yes, after the fact, it's obvious that, if I'd done it this year, I could, because you could change which benefits you had every year. If I'd known in advance, of course I frigging would. But, to be honest, it was my choice to have implants. If the tooth on a plate had stuck, I probably would have stuck with that. But it didn't. So I didn't. But over here, we do have a much simpler life, in that, should you be taken randomly ill, get hit by a car, whatever, you are not going to be bankrupt for the privilege. And to be honest, that's kind of how it should be. Because, and I mean this with all due respect to various governments, you need working people to earn the money to pay you the money. If they're all lying broken at home, unable to work, you're paying them money out of money that ain't coming in. So it's in your interest to have a healthy society, so that you have money coming in to spend upon yourselves, because you take quite a lot of it, and the rest of the things that you wish to choose to spend it on, not be forced to pay for lots of people who can't work and that are really ill. And I also know that it's kind of common that, let's say that I think it's something like having a baby costs about 35 grand in America. But that's not what the medical company will pay for it. If you have to pay for it out of pocket, it's 35 grand. The medical company will write back, "I ain't fucking paying that." And then they do a deal, and then they don't pay that much money for it. I'm sorry. So if it doesn't actually cost 35 grand, how do they get away with charging Random Joe, because he lost his job, 35 grand? Because Random Joe, of all people, can't afford 35 grand. Now, the one thing I will say that is still slightly screwed up in the UK is that if you have NHS hospital, you have to pay for parking, and it ain't friggin' cheap. And anyone who comes to visit you has to pay for parking, and it ain't cheap. The nurses who work there have to pay parking at the same rate. It ain't cheap. When you go private, parking's free. So the people who can afford to pay for private healthcare potentially have slightly more money are the ones who get it for nothing. Right. You also often get free tea and coffee in the waiting area. And not the extortionate cost of half a cup of slop and poison that you get, if you're lucky, in an NHS vending machine, because those things are enough to kill you in their own right. When you get fed in a private hospital, actually, have I ever been fed by a private hospital? I've been in a few, and I do need to point out I have been in quite a few, because I had both knee ops in private hospitals, and obviously I had the pre and the post, and then so I've been to plenty of private hospitals. No, I never stayed. Never actually stayed. They assign you a room for your stay, and then I flee, basically. The moment I'm awake after the thing, I'm like all but climbing out the window. I don't climb out the window. They do discharge me. Sometimes slightly more reluctantly, let's put it that way. But when I first did my knee, my operation was at 7 o'clock at night. At 9 o'clock I was back at my dad's house. And now technically you're not allowed to drive within the same 20. They usually say the same day you've had an operation. What they meant was 24 hours. Well, so I waited till midnight and then drove home. I was an hour from my dad, right? It was about an hour and 20-minute drive. Because if I'd waited the 24 hours, now my leg would have swollen up and hurt like a motherfucker, and driving a car would have been really, really hard. But because I'm hyped on painkillers, it doesn't hurt right now, so I made beeline and went home. And when I went back for my checkup, the guy who did my knees, bloke called Mr. J, and Mr. J went, "Did you drive home Sunday?" And I went, "No." And he looked at me and I went, "No, I waited till just after midnight, so it was the next day." He went, "You know what I meant." And I went, "Yeah, but I didn't lie." He said, "You weren't supposed to drive." And I went, I know, but I needed to get home, and, it all worked out for the best, and, all the rest of it. Next time I bust my knee, and I had the second one, they did the operation in the morning. That was a bit more awkward, because before I bust my knee, Trevor and I had booked to go and see Jack D, who's a UK comic, at Cheltenham Racecourse, which is not far from here, and I was really looking forward to it. And it turned out my operation was the morning of going to see Jack D. So basically, I needed the laugh. I just had an operation. My knee was painful. I wanted the laugh. So I was back home by my dad's by lunchtime. I was in the car by 1:30. I drove home. I was a little bit tired, so I pulled over at one point and kind of like, if I'm going to go to sleep, go to sleep. And my body went, "I've changed my mind now." So I finished and drove home. And I drove home, went out in the evening, laughed my head off, had a great time. Yeah, next morning, knee hurt like a motherfucker, and it was huge. But at least I was home. I could do it in the privacy of my own home. But, Mr. J is an absolutely wonderful bloke. He is mostly retired. And God help him if I ever need more things done to me. I mean, he did say he could fix my hip, and to be honest, it's been playing up and I have been thinking about it, but I really don't need a hip operation. Hip operations are bad news. You must walk, but you will be in agony, and you do need someone staying with you, and I haven't really got someone staying with you, so that would be awkward. And it's not like I could even use my dad, because of course my dad died, so otherwise I wouldn't be living here. So it is kind of difficult, but there are times, and certainly at the moment it's been quite uncomfortable for the last 6 or 7 weeks actually. I walk along like someone's shot me in the leg or something. It's quite embarrassing. But as I work from home now, for the most part, I don't have to be too... It's not like I've got to go upstairs for every meeting, you know. It's okay. I pick up my headphones and I talk to people on the phone. So I'm quite cool with that. It means bits of me are wearing out less quick than they probably would have done if I'd still been on site. So, whatevs. Anyway, thank you for joining me this evening. I am going to go and get me some food because it's now 10:30. And as I said, I haven't eaten yet, nor have the dogs. It has been good to see you, especially you, Archer. I haven't spoken to you for ages. And I do enjoy talking to you all. I do. I will be back tomorrow afternoon, 2 o'clock. Because it's Friday tomorrow, as far as I remember. It says, where's my phone? Yeah, it's Friday tomorrow. It's 4th of July, so tomorrow, of course, being Lord British's birthday, we will be deliberately not playing Shroud of the Avatar. Because I just... him and Star spoiled that for me so much. It was too... They were too silly. And it spoiled that. I swear they spoiled that game. But never mind. I've still got my accounts, but yeah. Anyway, I haven't looked at it for 2.5, 3 years, maybe longer actually. Might be way longer. I'm not convinced I've played it much since I've been in this house, and I've been in this house 6 years. So it might be more like 5 years that since I really last logged in. I think I logged in briefly and gave it a bit of a poke. Kind of went, yeah, and moved on. But Archer, it's been good to see you. You are still free to poke me on Discord. I am playing. I am into Monsters and Memories. Not this weekend. I thought it was this weekend. In fact, I'm really sure it was this weekend. But apparently, it's the weekend after. What used to be Evercraft and now Avian Online are doing their playtest. I will play that, but not as much. So I will, because while I really enjoy it, it's not quite got me the same way as Monsters and Memories has. Monsters and Memories is definitely scratching my itch, and Embers Adrift really kind of bugged me because initially both you and I played Embers Adrift, right? And it had good potential. But like so many games, it had potential, and the further it went on, the further away it got from kind of what was talked about, and the more I kind of didn't like it. It's almost, whereas, for example, if you ever played EverQuest, Monsters and Memories is... Well, sign up for Monsters and Memories, and next time they have a playtest, which is the end of July, they're doing a 5-day playtest. It's free, after all. Come and have a play. Look out for Liz Biscuits, that'll be me. I'm often in OOC answering questions, depending on which server you play on. But it is... Well, we have snakes, but it is kind of a clone. But I don't know if it's the EQ clone with the snakes. We have snakes. We have... In the noob area, there, of course, are rats, skeletons, spiders. It has a real feel to it, but the characters are different. So, as an example, an enchanter in Monsters and Memories isn't just crowd control. An enchanter has all your buffs. So your agility, it has strength buff. It has strength, agility, wisdom, intelligence, haste. I mean, it's got some of the same, but it's also got like agility and dexterity. Well, that wasn't normal. Monk, ogres can be mages. They're called elementalists, but ogres can be magicians. I like being an ogre. Ogres get to be quite a few things, but there are monks. But the elementalists are more placed with the monks than other characters. There's fighters, archers, rangers, warriors. Are there actual warriors? Yeah, there's warriors. Shadow Knights, paladins, inquisitors, which are quite interesting. Spellblades. You have a lot of options that we can play. I like me, have always had 50,000 alts. And the only reason I didn't in Sota was because you could literally be everything. But yeah, I missed EverQuest. And ever since Sony burnt me by being mean, I have missed EverQuest. And this has a very strong EverQuest feel to it. Oh, did my stream drop out? Apparently my stream dropped out while on stream. Apologise for that. But yeah, it is always good. I need to go and cook some food because now it's 11:15 and I'm hungry, and so are the dogs. So, in a bit of a rush, I'm going to disappear before I talk to you much more, and I will speak to you 2 o'clock tomorrow. Bye bye.